Today we will be going over how to import outside data into the VoterIQ system. And essentially this will be an append of outside information to existing records that are already in the system itself. You essentially have two options here. You can import or append a file that originally came from VoterListsOnline, or you can append any information that you have from an outside source. Essentially, the information will be merged on certain selected criteria, and then the information that you wish to actually append is what will be appended to the data itself. So in our example here, what we have is just a small localized file. We have all of the basic information: name, address, phone number, and then we also have two columns of data that we wish to append back into the system. The first column is the presence of a child in the school system, and then the second column is a Board of Elections recall, yes or no, for both of those. And so that information is what we want to upload back into the data itself. So with that being said, we'll go into VoterListsOnline, and the first thing that we'll need to do is actually create the data points that we need to upload into the system. And the data points that we had were based on the two columns of data. We had the presence of a child in the school system and the Board of Election recall. So to first create those points, highlight data points, click on the green New button, and under name is just a general English text name. And under field name, you want to enter the information exactly as it is in your file. So for ours was child SCH. Under description, you can get a little more elaborate about the actual name there and what the information includes. Under type, this is the type of information that's within the column itself. For our example, ours is considered multiple options: Y, N, T, F, yes, no, maybe, anything that essentially gives a set and select number of options there in the data. You also have the text, which essentially pulls data as is, email, format for email uploads, and then phone number for the phone column, or phone data. So we'll select multiple options. The next section under options is that the specific values that we have in the data, we'll need to select those here. We'll click the green plus for adding that value. The value in the data as is Y, and then the text will say yes, and the value for N, no. And those are the two options that are actually in the data itself. So with that being said, we can click over here onto the blue diskette to save those changes, and that field is now added into the system. And now what we want to do is repeat the same process for that second column of data that we have in our uploaded file. And again, the field name needs to be exactly as it is in the data. Under type, again, we have multiple options. We will add one value for Y, which is yes. We will add another value for N, which is no. And then we can go up here and save the changes for that. Now both of those options are saved, and the data points will now be set to receive that data when we upload it into the system. Now, going back to the file that we had, one thing that you will need to do before you upload the data is actually, again, save it as a CSV or DBF format, but you will also need to zip or archive the file itself. Now you see here I have my original file, and then I've zipped it up, and the zipped file is what you're going to upload. It has to be in the zip format before you upload. So with our files being ready to go, we click under the Files option here, and we want to add the new file. So we click on the green plus up here at the top. And you have the two options here, the transfer files generated from VoterListsOnline or the import my own file and match to voter data. And for our example, this is an outside file, so we'll import it and match it to the data. And again, it reminds you here about the CSV or DBF format and in a zipped archive file. So we'll go and select our file. And we'll just name it whatever you need to name it. We'll select the state that this data comes from, which brings up my next point, that the data that you upload needs to be in a specific state. If you have a file that contains multiple states, you will need to break it out where all of the data for that file is within a separate state. So for ours comes from Georgia. We will select Georgia. The next step is the matching criteria that you want to go by. The file that we had contained first name, last name, address, city, state, zip, and phone number. That we can use all of that criteria in one level and give us a pretty good confidence or reliability of the match criteria itself. So what we'll do is we'll select first name, last name, address, city, and zip. And state will not be included because essentially we've already told it that it's going to pull by state. And for that, we'll click the green plus. And with all of that criteria, we can assign it a confidence level. And because of this reliability here, we feel safe enough that it's a confidence level of 1. If you had first initial, if you just had last name, city, state, and zip, you can essentially check those boxes, click the add button, and then select a confidence level that's a little bit lower. So whatever you're looking at here, you can assign it on this side to whatever confidence level you have. Since we have all of that information and this file is fairly reliable, we can just select that and the confidence level of 1 and then upload the data based on that. Now the next step that we want to do is select the data points that are in our file, which are the 2 columns that we had that we want appended into the data itself. So we had Board of Education recall, and then we had child and school system. And with both of those checked, we can click on the green plus, and that will now show over here. So we're uploading this file based on this criteria, and these fields will be appended to the data itself. So with that information all being set, we can save this, and it goes through an upload process. Now what it will tell you up here is that the file is being imported, and it will tell you that that information was saved. Now what you will get later in an email is a notification that this file was received, it was being imported, and it will let you know by a count of how many records in the file were uploaded into the data itself. So what we'll do is we'll go and refresh and drop down, and it's still being uploaded. So when that information does get uploaded, we can go over here and look at our files and eventually tell us that that information is imported into the system. Now after that's imported into the system, you can begin to create projects based on that information. You can also go back into your queries and run queries based on that information that you've appended. So if you're looking for voters who have a child in the school system, that will be included under your queries option into the data itself under the Add VoterIQ search. And you will see that you'll be able to select that option here to be able to search by. And that concludes the uploading of the file into the data itself.